and welcome back to Map the Maze. So this month we're talking about how can you get a little help to get through your separation and divorce. And in the first week, I talked about working with third-party professionals. Last week, I talked about family and friends. And this week, I'm just going to talk about you. What can you do to help yourself, to give yourself the best chance of having a constructive mediation? So I think there are a couple of things that are important. The first one is kind of the hardest, which is take care of yourself, to actually look after yourself. That if you have listened to the podcast that I did about how emotions are made, which was a book by Lisa Feldman Barrett, she talks about how we have to manage our body budget, because our body budget will tell our brain and then how we construct emotions, how we should be feeling. So if you are not sleeping properly, or maybe you're sleeping too much, if you are not eating enough, or you're eating too much, if you're not exercising, if you're not actually doing the very basic things to keep yourself healthy, to look after yourself, then coming through your separation divorce is going to be a major mountain to climb. So really important that on a very basic level, that you are looking after yourself, that you sleep when you can, that you get the sleep that you need, but that you get some quality sleep, that you eat healthily, that you eat enough. I have some clients who really have just had staggering weight losses because of the stress of what's happening. And it's so hard for them to then feel strong and to feel capable of making it through their mediation. So I would just say, make sure that you're eating properly, that you're eating, healthily with some naughty stuff in there, that people are exercising, that they're actually physically moving their bodies to help process some of what they're going through. And all of those things contribute to managing your body budget. So if your body budget is balanced, then the chances are you will be able to regulate your emotions more easily. So it doesn't mean that bad things won't happen, but it just means that if bad things happen, you will be in a better place to manage them. You will have more capacity to manage yourself. So first thing, take care of yourself. Second thing, I think it's also about finding ways to help process. And obviously, in the last two podcasts, we talked about how you might do that with other people, but there are actually tools you can use just to help yourself process what's going on. And there's a lot of research, so this may or may not be applicable for you, but there's a lot of research around journaling, that actually the physical act, and I don't mean typing, the physical act of writing can be extremely helpful to process emotions that we're experiencing, to get them out on the page, to help us to analyze, to think carefully about what's going on, and also to move through those feelings, to move through those emotions. Because when you are feeling at your lowest, at your worst, it can seem as if that's always going to be the case. And that in itself can become this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where it's just a continuous downward spiral. But the reality is how we feel is transitory. Today we might feel positive, and tomorrow we might feel negative, and the day after we might feel ecstatic. It doesn't last. But when you're in a negative emotion, it can feel as if it will last forever. So finding ways to express those emotions, to get them out. If you don't want to go and see a counselor, I think journaling is a really helpful way to think about expressing those feelings and helping to process them. So there's a lot of, as I said, research around that. So it's not just, it sounds nice, it's actually important. So get a nice book. I'm a stationary person. So for me, getting a nice book is always the start of any project. But get a nice book. Make time. If it's 5 minutes in the morning before everybody's up, or it's 5 minutes at the end of the day when everyone's gone to bed, make some time, put it in your calendar so that you know, I am definitely going to do this. For 5 minutes, I'm just going to let it all out. And I would say, I think there is also an element of just release. But it's also the physical act. It's the physical act of writing. So journaling, make some time for it. The other thing that's really helpful to try and help maintain your equilibrium when you're going through what can be a really tough time is flow. So you will know there are things that you do that put you into a flow state. And what I mean by that is a state where all of your focus, all of your attention is on the activity that you're doing, and that it gives your brain a chance to power down, because all of the attention is on what's happening. All of the noise, all of the concerns, all of the stuff that's going on out here just goes away. And it's kind of about being present in that moment, doing something. So I've talked to lots of people about what gets them into flow state. Some of them sound strange to me, but they work for them. But for example, for me, it's painting. That if I'm painting, nothing else is going on. It doesn't matter how bad that day has been or how much I'm beating myself up for making stupid choices. I'm just painting. And at the end of it, I feel this sense of peace, of calm, of rest, that I've managed to actually turn off the noises, the voices in the brain, so that I can focus on something and be completely present. Some people do it through physical exercise. So I know that there are some people who find swimming incredibly helpful, because it's just, I'm going to focus on this stroke. I'm going to focus on my breathing. I'm going to focus on where I am in the pool, hopefully whether there are other people in the pool, but focusing on that. Some people find it running. I don't really understand that, but sure, maybe if running works for you. But there will be an activity that takes you out of yourself, that frees you from just this constant background hum of what's happening in your life. And that's really important, to give yourself that break so that you can recharge, so that you can come back and be focused and fresh. And so what I would say is, again, just as with journaling, figure out what it is, plan it, make sure, just as we talked about with atomic divorce habits, make sure that you create the system to make it easy. So if it's running, put your shoes next to the door. Get your gym clothes out and folded so that you know where they are at all times. If it's painting, make sure that things are accessible. You don't have to dig through cupboards to try and find stuff. Put it out on a table. Yeah, make sure that it's there. So schedule it. So build the system, schedule it. So put it in the calendar. Yeah, it's just as important as going to the dentist or going to the doctor or going to see your lawyer, is finding time to create flow, to be in flow state. What else? Reading. That actually there are lots of great books that can really help. And if reading is your thing, then books. If listening is your thing, there are Audible books. But there are lots of really amazing people who are writing in this space, who are creating ideas in this space to help people who are divorcing and separating to manage this process better for themselves. So I've talked about some of those books on this podcast, but I think what's important is finding the book that resonates with you. That I definitely have seen a real range, a spectrum of books. Some are very, I guess, what last century would have been called New Age, and might seem a bit too transcendental. I think there are some books that are very kind of research based, so very much focused on the world of cognitive science. Those are really helpful. There will be, because there is such a range, there will be a book out there that speaks to you, that makes sense for what you're going through, and also how you process emotions, how you look after yourself. So what I would say is get informed, read about this. Particularly, I think I see that when people have children and they've done a lot of reading around it, they feel empowered that, yes, of course, they're parents, and of course they love their children. They know how to look after their children, and they know their children. But what's helpful is reading around the area gives you more ideas about, but this is children who are transitioning through separation. What does that actually mean? And developmentally, what does that mean for children? So being informed, informing yourself, I think is the other thing that I see people do that really makes a difference for them when they come to their mediation. And the last one is one that I've seen quite a lot of people do, and definitely depends on what's available in your area. But there are lots of support groups that set up that are not, sometimes they're run by mental health professionals, but often they are just ad hoc. They're people who've experienced similar things, that can be really helpful. That I've definitely spoken to quite a lot of people who have been to separation, divorce support groups and talked to other people who are either about to enter that journey, have been further along the journey than they are experiencing the same thing. And that can be really helpful. Not that everybody has the same experience, because that's definitely not true, but that people may be able to anticipate some of the things you may experience and may be able to give you some ideas for how to deal with it better. I think the other thing that I often see is it can be really isolating. Going through separation and divorce can make you feel ashamed. You can feel guilty. People can feel like they've failed, that they don't want to talk about it with others, and it can be isolating. So the friend group that you both had as a couple may not be there. They may either have chosen sides, which happens, or they may just feel like, oh, I don't want to choose sides, so we're just going to, stand back until this is over. So people can feel quite isolated. I guess the other thing that's really obvious is that the person who was their partner, who, to different degrees was the person they would confide in, is no longer available. That actually the person who they were most intimate with is no longer there in that capacity. And so it can feel really lonely. And so I think one of the real benefits from going to some of these support groups is talking to other people and thinking, actually, it's not just me who's feeling some of these things, who's experiencing some of these things. Actually, lots of people go through this and lots of people feel this way, and people come out on the other side. So I definitely think that sense of community can be really helpful. I would say just be careful. So again, just as with working with any professional or talking to a family member, there will be groups who are all about getting you through this in a positive way, on helping to support you. And there'll be other groups who are all about spending all of their time talking about how dreadful the other person is and what it's like to be married to a monster. That's not going to be helpful. Yeah, that you can already do the monster talk yourself. The problem is it changes your mindset. So instead of trying to figure out how am I going to make this work for me and my children, if you have children, you're going to be thinking about the punishment, the blame, the past. And in mediation, you need to be focused on the future. We need to find a way to help to build a future where you can thrive. And definitely for clients who have that mindset, I see them move through it. It's never easy. It is not easy. It is hard. But at the end, they feel a sense of empowerment. They feel a sense of, it's not what I wanted. It's not what I would have chosen, but I can see how my life will work. I can see how I will look after myself going forward. So again, just be careful. Find a good group. Find a group that's the right balance for you, and think about having some community. Think about what that might be like, and it might be helpful. So those are the things I would suggest that you can do yourself, without having to go to a professional, without talking to family and friends. So take care of yourself, just the very basics: food, exercise, sleep. Just make sure that you're healthy. Find flow, figure out whatever your flow state is and get in it, find it, schedule it. Read around this, inform yourself, because there are lots of really helpful books. There are lots of things out there that are helpful. I would say there's things out there that are not helpful, but you can probably tell where I'm coming from. And then lastly, maybe try and think about finding some community, joining a support group, finding people who are experiencing similar things, and finding ways to kind of use that to help support yourself, to support others. I would say it's like a lot of things, that feeling that you're helping other people can be a really powerful way to make you feel better about yourself, and also can be really empowering. If you think, well, let me share with you what happened to me, and that might help you get through this, that can be a really positive experience and make you feel like, you know what, actually, I have learned something that I can share with others to help make their life a little bit easier. Okay, so those are things that I would suggest that you can do as an individual. And next week, we're going to do putting it all together. So take care, and I'll see you next week.